Yo, what's good, everybody? This is QE here from the Chopper Express, and here to bring you my Blackbeard PRB deck profile. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm getting into any events this season, during the PRB format to be able to play during the regionals, but kind of just wanted to bring y'all where I am right now with the list, kind of how I think about the deck, and kind of just go through it. So, if this is your first time playing One Piece or you're kind of just new, what Blackbeard does is one, your own play effects don't activate. And then during your turn, you can trash one card from your hand. Your opponent's on plays don't activate until basically the start of your turn. So Blackbeard kind of exists as a control deck within the format and kind of helps bring the power level of your opponent's deck down in order to make the cards that are in your deck a lot more powerful. And then using cards like Q, Van Auger, and Teach control the board and eventually overpower your opponent's board, and through that win the game in that way. With that, it can become kind of difficult to maintain the game states, and sometimes the biggest skill set is one, knowing which cards to pitch, understanding scenarios, and versus decks like Rayleigh and aggro decks being able to keep the tempo of the game at a small levels in order for you to build your board and your card advantage in order to win the game in the late game. So where I think Blackbeard kind of sits is slightly outside of the top 5, probably in terms of where it is, probably like tier 1.5, tier 2-ish. But I think versus most matchups, it does have a 50-50, and if played well, you can proceed to win those games. And I think the advantageous part of playing Blackbeard is that it is not, it could be now, but previously it didn't feel like a matchup that people just extensively played against. So you just had that kind of benefit where you knew the matchup was slightly better than your opponent, and so that's how that's how the wins would come about. But here is the list that I'm playing right now. So starting with the cards I consider starters. I come from a Yu-Gi-Oh background, so that's kind of how I deck build. We're playing four Fuloled, 4 Lafitte, and 2 Myera. And so the reason this is the ratio that I've been going with is because one, these 8, when you see these 8 right here, when you see them with a good hand, it's basically an auto keep. So these are I think these are the 8 best starters you can have. And then with Fuloled, it's almost like, as long as your hand's not atrocious, I think I probably had like one hand where I auto kept Fuloled, but it was like 3 2Ks in the 7 and another brick. And I think that's the only hand where I felt like, dang, looking back, I was like, oh, maybe I should have mulliganed this hand. And then with Lafitte versus decks like Rayleigh, Zoro, and things like that, during the mid game, if you can start summoning Lafitte's and start building out your board, since you're already controlling their board pretty well with Q and 7-cost each, then you can use Lafitte's to rebuild your hand towards the end of the game if they decide just like ignore the board and go phase. So this is kind of how that card plays in. So basically, to describe the scenario, versus like Rayleigh, what I'll do is say on my 7 Dawn turn, I have like I have a Q with the Kuzan set up. I'll make sure I fit a Lafitte in on that turn. So now I have Q, Van Auger, and Lafitte. And so now they have to decide whether to trade into this body or to just try and just keep going face. And if they don't trade, then I'll try and fit in another Lafitte on the board. So now I'm generating 2 cards per turn. And at this point, most of the time they'll say, okay, like I'll try and outpace those cards. But now you're able to like kind of map your turns still a little bit easier in order to like continue controlling their board. But now you're generating an extra card every turn. And it's okay if it costs 2 Dawn because you just need to get counterpart at that point in the game most of the time. And the reason I'm playing 2 Myera, just more spacey reasons. I think with Blackbeard, one of the things that the leader is able to do, allows you to do, is give you flexibility in your deck building, because you can fit in more one-ofs and things of those natures in order to, because your deck searches through your deck and you're able to just pitch cards, and then you have cards like I'm going to show like 5-cost Kuzan allow you to get them back from trash. You can play one-ofs of particular Blackbeard cards or lower counts and say, hey, I just need to get them in my trash. Kind of similar to like a Lucci theory that we used to have back in like OP7, OP8, where you can play minimum numbers of certain cards just because them being in your deck list gives you access to those. From there, we're gonna get into the pop strategy. So I play 3 7-cost Teach, 4 5-cost Kuzan, 4 Van Auger, and 4 Q. And this is kind of like the pop strategy, and this really comes up. So I guess I should go over all the cards. That's on me. So going back to Fuloled, what Fuloled does is You can tap itself, put your card, look at the top 3, and then get a Blackbeard card and send the back and bottom to the top 2. Lafitte lets you tap a Don, look at the top 5, grab a Blackbeard card, put the rest to the bottom. My Era lets you look at the top 3, pick a Blackbeard card, send the other 2 to the trash. 7-cost Teach will let you tap itself to pop a 3-cost or less, and then if it's on KO, lets you add any black card from your trash. 5-cost Kuzan can be removed by card effects, but it'll let you trash yourself, draw a card, and summon any 5 costs or lower Blackbeard card. Van Augur lets you turn yourself sideways, -3 something, and then if it KO'd, draw a card, and then Dog Q lets you pop 1 cost or less than if your draw is KO. So you can kind of see the synergy between this card and this card, and these cards really come up during like every matchup. It's kind of like predominantly most of this format you really want to go first is because hitting Searcher into Doc, into Van, into 7 cost is like actually very powerful for the majority of the decks in the format. And so previously, before this format, you would go for like a Burgess beatdown strat because that was more consistent. But now that we have access to 7-cost Teach, it's just it's a lot easier to do it this way. So this is kind of like the basic core of the deck, and from here, 2Ks. So I have 4 Caribous and then 4 Stronger. Basically for my 2Ks, you can go up on 2K count and include Devon and things of that nature, but I decide to just play these specifically. Caribou, in my opinion, is just kind of similar to how we played Vivi in the like OP 10-11 format, where this card is really good into Luffy and things like that, and then you have Stronger, which is just the best Blackbeard 2K that we have right now. For some more new cards, I play Shiru from PRB, or these are just like the extra blockers I play. And then we have Kuzan. So Shiru kind of takes the place of where Samuel Wolf was last format, where it was kind of just a blocker that was really hard for blue to deal with. And so but this one is able to double up by helping with aggro matchups by saying when it gets KO'd, it can pop a base, I think 4 costs or less. Yeah, base 4 costs or less. And then its other effect is it becomes a blocker if your leader's Blackbeard. That's an 8, that with plus 4 cost. So it's an 8 cost blocker on summon. And then when it dies, it pops a 4 cost or less, which is really good against Rayleigh. I think the one thing we have to pay attention to when you're playing this card is that like you need to like put it with something else, because your opponent will just try and like trade. They'll trade their 1 swing for their 1 swing, and that's just your body for the turn. So one thing I've been noticing in testing is trying to get this alongside Burgess or alongside Kuzan or something, so that like when you do take the trade, you're not actually losing board presence in that sense. And I think also being careful about when you summon this, mostly because of the fact that basically if your opponent only has 1 target on this board, one target for this card's not as powerful as when they have like 2 4 costs or lowers, and then you can kind of trade the 4 cost or lower swing for the other body, and that's like really advantageous. 6 cost Kuzan, basically just a blocker on KO, summon a 5 cost or lower Blackbeard back to your field rested. I think this card's just really powerful, especially versus a lot of the decks in the game, versus Rayleigh, UP, and Zoro, just because it helps you maintain board pressure, and then it doesn't lose you any cards. So being able to go Kuzan, block into your 5 cost Kuzan, it means basically you get to draw an extra card, you maintain the same board presence, and you save the life. And then against UP, you can just kind of like hold this towards the end of the game, and like after they've burned through their red rock, you can kind of put them on whether or not they play Gravity Blade, and then use this to protect your board while still also building your board out, which is really good against that matchup. From here, we get into like more tech cards for specific matchups. So we have 2 Black Vortex and then 4 Tempest Kicks. So I think these cards are, I mean, if you play the deck, you basically know these are basically mandatory. But some people do include an extra Black Vortex, which you can help versus Zoro. But so far, in my testing, I haven't had too much trouble with Zoro, but I can understand including a 3rd Black Vortex to like to sure that matchup up. But also against other decks like Rayleigh, seeing this card later in the game helps you have enough counter power to like stay at like 1 life, which is like very good in that matchup. And then 4 Tempest Kick, previously I was playing at Nats, I played like a 2-2 split with this little boom, but this card's just so good against UP that like I think that it warrants being made. And also the trigger effect comes up against some decks, so you can kind of get a good trigger, finger pistol type trigger out of that. Black Vortex, basically what it says is it's a counter event, costs 2 Dawn. When your opponent basically you can use it minus 4K to a character or leader, and then that leader's also or that card's also negated. So it really comes against Zoro because basically you target their leader when they swing into one of your minions. You tap the Dawn, and then their leader can't reswing without the event, so you can basically skip their turn, or if they decide to just pressure life, you can just take your lives and then like use this to like stay alive. And then in that matchup also, like Kuzan combined with this basically can sometimes net you a body still, and then also still force their event, because some of them are not on Luna anymore, so you can kind of do it that way. But usually I just respect Luna, and you can either like float this back into Shiru so you can play around Luna if you really wanted to. But really, Tempest Kick is really for UP, for all your matchups just to go along with your Augurs, Dog Qs, and 7-cost Teaches. And this is kind of like a personal thing. I play 3 10-cost Teach and 3 Burgess. For me, I think I understand the reasoning. Some people play 2 10-cost Teach because it really, I will say the card doesn't come up as much as you may need it to in certain game states, but I always feel like when I'm playing the deck, I like the option that I can basically grab this whenever I feel like it. When I felt like I test 2, there are game states where I think this card can like basically win the game on the spot for me. And if I only play 2, then like and you don't see it, you're kind of like forced to go for different lines, and this is just a simpler line. Plus also my biggest thing with tournaments is I don't want to lose to Shanks or Bonnie or Anel when I'm forced to play on the bad curve versus those matchups. And so I think if you play 3 of these versus Bonnie, if you play 3 of these in your deck versus a Bonnie deck, then like even if you go second in a Bonnie, you can just turbo find all 3 and then put out a Burgess on your 8 Dawn, and basically that's enough to beat them most times. And then I played 3 Burgess, mostly for the fact that I felt like coming into this format, like you see an increase in Shanks and GP. And one of the things in GP that like can come up in my opinion, is that if you don't hit your pop strat, the game can become, you need to like spin the game into this strat, because once they stick like a Sanji and Pudding, you're basically almost racing at that point. And even though you're unfavored into that situation, the best chance you have is to be able to spin into multiple big Burgesses, and then try and just tempo and try and control the rest of the board while you're at it. And I like the fact that I like rather being able to find a Burgess when I need it versus I just like the math on it. Cause I feel like sometimes there are some games where you play and then you can't find the Burgess, and now you're forced to just like kind of play. It just feels weird. And so I just felt like it's a 3-0 at that point for me. And then the last card I played was 1 Shiru. I play 1 Shiru mostly because I think you can have an extra proactive spot versus the Rayleigh deck. It's a really good 4-Dawn play versus most decks. A lot of people will try and like stick out their Zorojuros and other card and like Koshiro against you, because some lists aren't playing a Shiru or Black Vortex or Black Hole. And so they're able just to stick out 3-cost bodies, and like having this card at least floating through your deck kind of helps you have that flexibility. Kind of what I was talking about with Blackbird, where you can play a flexible 1-up for a name, and because of this, you're basically playing 5 copies and then being able to play 10 searchers, 4 or 8, which can search most turns. You're able to find it pretty easily, or at least know where it's at within your deck list if you really need it. And so this is the kind of list that I would take to a regional if I was going to be in one the rest of the season. Just to give you a little, I guess, insight, I played at locals last Friday. I went 3-1, my 1 loss being the Rayleigh, my other 3 wins being Bello Betty, UP Luffy, and Zoro. So 3 of those matchups got to be some meta matchups. The Rayleigh matchup, I felt like if I played a little bit better, I could have won that one too, but I made a lot of little mistakes in terms of what to discard for my field spell and also counter events. So I ended up dying to a double 0-cost event, and I made a few mistakes with turning them off during the late game, where I felt like I needed counter power and whether or not I really needed it or not. So I think if I played better, I probably could have won that game too. But a shout out to all the people I played at locals. But this is the list that I have, and just to kind of give like a little bit of better insight, I'm gonna go through some of the spots that are kind of free for people and what other spots you could put in. So some of the spots that I think are flexible in nature are the Shiru, if you really want to play it, a Burgess, and 10-cost Teach. and then sometimes one Kuzan. So these are like some of the flex spots that some people may or may not cut, and you can kind of work with. I think everything else to me feels almost mandatory. And so one of the things you can either put in for those spots is, let's make some room. You can put in Laboon, you can put in extra copies of cards like Shiru, you can put in Black Hole, you can put in the third Myera, you can put in extra 2Ks, or you can put in Black Vortex. So one thing is with Laboon, I'm gonna start with Laboon. So what Laboon is, it kind of can help with your pop strategy where you can get to pop higher cards, usually in the more top end metas. Maybe can help with certain scenarios. My only thing is with Laboon is I felt like I don't like losing cards. So against UP, which was my main thing, versus UP, like the card can come up, but it's not necessary. If you see Tempest Kick or you're able to like kind of stick on like your augers, you don't ever really need this card in. I feel like when I play well that match, when I plan ahead, then I never really feel like it comes up. And then you can get into like the cards where you can play extra copies of cards. So you can play your third Black Vortex, your third Myera, or your second Shiru. These are more just like helping out consistency and seeing certain cards in certain matchups. This is mostly like they serve the same purpose. So if you are more scared of Rayleigh, then you play extra Shiru. If you just want to have more consistency, you can play another Myera. And if you are slightly more scared of Zoro, then you can play another Black Vortex. And these three can always do that for you. Black Hole, my reasoning for not playing Black Hole is I felt like Black Hole really comes up in certain scenarios and certain cards, really. It's not even scenarios. So I feel like Black Hole mostly comes up for the 6-cost Law versus Smoker and Shanks. And then it comes up in the mirror match. And I just felt like in those situations that it's not, I guess in a sense, that serious to play a Black Hole for those specific situations, because you may or may not, you may play like one Blackbeard within your whole tournament. It's just a deck with a low representation rate. And then with the 6-cost Law, I think you can still win the Smoker matchup. You just gotta probably ignore that card or just try and like double pop it if you can. And that's kind of the same thing with like Odin and things like that. Like you can Odin's a little different because you can just get the 10 costs, and if you're playing another two, you can just 10 cost the Odin. Same thing with the Law. The Law comes out like a turn earlier than before your 10, or 2 turns earlier before your 10 costs. So it's a little bit more greedy to try and get to that aspect of the game. But you can play any of those cards. And then the last card, you can play extra 2Ks like Devon, where Devon lets you, still has a minus effect. So if it comes up for that, but it gives you an extra 2K, which can help in like having survivability, and also having another searchable 2K is really strong in that scenario too. And that's my list right now. And I know some people asked for it, so that's kind of like what I want to do in these videos and kind of just get it out there for PRB. I'll try and do one as well for the OP13 format after I do some testing. This is just where I got to right now with the PRB being a short format as it is. And I really hope y'all enjoyed the video. Continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and hopefully I can keep bringing good videos for y'all. Thank you.